Hello, everyone, and welcome to an American Scouser podcast, very first, where we're doing a live and video and post match, all that kind of stuff at the same time. So new that we do not have even the logo yet. We're in like a visitor studio right here for the day, for the time being. So, with me today is Mateusz and our American Gerard, Jordan Gerard. What's going on, gentlemen?
How's it going?
Going well,
Good
going
watch
well.
today.
So before we go into the details, kind of wanted to talk about what you guys thought of the game in general. So Mateusz, let's start with you. Like, what are your thoughts for the game as a total?
I think overall solid performance, especially after that. I don't know, after the first 15 minutes, when things kind of calmed down a little bit. It was shaky to begin, and then it was a little shaky towards the end too. Just that probably just goes with fitness, and Van Dijk hasn't played a full 90 in the Prem for a long time. Matip hasn't played a full 90 in the Prem. Costas hasn't played a full 90 in the Prem. So all of that will add up, and I think that's kind of what they let off the gas a little bit at the end, which is, I mean, it's fine. But I think it was fun to watch, and it was very comfortable throughout, I'd say, 65, 70 minutes of that match.
Yeah, Norwich did not really look like they had a good bite, right? I mean, attacking wise, it did look comfortable, but so let's go with wait. So as we get comments here, we have to share them, and this one I do have to share right here. Jamie, our actually one of our contributors, still around with us when available, is says congrats, Mateusz, on the proposal. For those of us who are not following Mateusz online, which I don't know why you wouldn't, he's an engaged man now. She said yes. Did
She
you
did.
go to Jared or where'd you go?
No, I did not go to Jared. I work at a jewelry store. If I went to
yes,
Jared, I would have been kicked out forever.
Employee discount for a jeweler must be a good deal, especially when you're getting a wedding ring. Yeah. So Jordan, let's come to you. What did you think of the game in general?
First off, I thought it was kind of a surprising lineup with Van Dijk in there after Klopp had kind of hinted that he didn't want to put someone in that was not ready for 90 minutes. Everyone kind of thought that Van Dijk wouldn't play the full 90. Um, wasn't surprised to see Milner in there because he played pretty decent in preseason. I was not surprised to see Jota getting the nod ahead of Firmino, although I was a bit disappointed when he came off kind of early. At the time, he seemed like he was the best attacking threat, so I was kind of confused by that. But Firmino, rewarded Klopp's decision with the goal, so it wasn't too bad. I would have liked to see Elliot get more time over Kaida, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for like I say, for the lineup we had, and especially for like what Mateusz is saying, I think a lot of people not having played 90 minutes, especially in the Premier League, was kind of like a big deal. And so Jordan kind of touched up on it. Mateusz, let me kind of ask your opinion on this. So the starting 11, you see the starting 11, any shockers? I know I had some shocks because, on the podcast when we talked about earlier in the week, we did not see Van Dijk playing. And we definitely thought Fabinho would start just because of, the preseason games and stuff. Any big shockers for you?
I mean, defensively, no. I didn't imagine Konate or Gomez starting today. It's really, I guess I didn't know if Van Dijk would truly start and then also go the full 90. So I guess in that sense, I was a little bit shocked. But I was more so surprised by the midfield. Surprised, but also kind of excited to see what that kind of midfield could look like. And Milner played great, Keita played great, but Ox was just, I don't know if it was just, I didn't watch the preseason games like I was telling you guys, so I don't know if he was just not in the same sort of role that he was during the preseason games, but he was just lost out there. It just never saw him. But besides that, the front three is kind of what I expected. And to Jordan's point, I think Jota did come out a little bit too early, especially seeing as how he was playing throughout the whole game.
Yeah, I know I'm going to hear from Gally and Bickler because I know on the podcast I was kind of like wanting to see Ox because I thought he looked like one of our best players. I was like, so thrilled to watch him the preseason. Seemed so fast, so aggressive, so much, more like direct when he got the ball and everything. I don't know if it's something that was in his head because it just definitely was not the same player we saw in preseason. So I don't know if the comfort of, making a mistake not being as costly affected the play and stuff, but it definitely was not the same Ox that I kind of saw and was very thrilled to watch during the preseason. Jordan, any shockers for you, especially like in that midfield, I guess?
I agree with you on Ox. I was actually excited about how he was playing in preseason. I've always been a fan since he made that comment about wanting to be Steven Gerrard. So that's how you win me over very easily. But yeah, he didn't play as well. He was a bit disappointing in the match. I thought Elliott was actually going to get the nod because he had played so well. I knew Kaida was going to get in there, even though I didn't want him to. But yeah, like I said, I was surprised Van Dijk got the starting role. I thought maybe Konate or somebody else that was more fit. But I'm happy. I'm glad that he did. So yeah, bit surprised, but
let's talk a little bit about Van Dijk, actually. Let's start with that in terms of like when we look at performances. I mean, it's unfair to expect the same Van Dijk that left to start suddenly. But I think, so defensively, we might not have the same Van Dijk yet, but I think it's probably coming. But I thought, especially going forward, his diagonals, his passing was so missed, and that looked like it was right back on 100%.
Yeah, he didn't look out of pace at all.
Yeah, I mean, he did let a couple of like runs slip by him, and it was Pookie of all people. He wasn't like, he's not the fastest. So that was kind of, but how about our boy Joel Matip, by the way? Man, that dude is so much fun to watch. And I thought he had his goal, but I thought, in terms of keeping that back line in good shape and, keeping a clean sheet, I thought him and Trent were probably like the key figures.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So how about, let's look at, I mean, obviously, apart from Van Dijk, the new piece to that back is the left back, Costas. And once again, similar to Van Dijk, it is probably unfair to expect him to, be Robo, because nobody can be Robo. But so what do you make of his game, though, Mateusz? Like, how would you rate him? If you were Bickler doing the post-game ratings for American Scouts, what are you giving him?
Like you mentioned, Robo's shoes are so big to fill right now, but I think all things considered, he played a great game. He definitely was gassed the last 15, 20 minutes. But while he had some of those moments where they're really shaky, like the one time where he lost his focus a little bit and forgot, or didn't see the Norwich. I forget which the winger was out there. Didn't see him on the side. He played a lot of good balls in the first half, made some good runs. And it was only towards the end where it got pretty shaky. So if I was Bickler, I'm probably looking at about a 7. I think that's between a 6 and a 7.
He was in your fantasy team, wasn't he?
Mine, yeah, mine was, yeah.
So do you get points taken out for that brain fart at the end?
No, absolutely not.
What did you make of him, Jordan?
I thought he was good up until about 70 minutes, and then all of a sudden he seemed to kind of lose focus, or maybe it was 66 minutes, 65 minutes or so. But yeah, he looked really good at first. He was definitely getting down on the sides. He was pretty quick, but defensively he doesn't look like he's quite at Robertson's level yet, which, I mean, you said he's not up to he doesn't play as many matches as Robertson has, or for any team really, since he's been on the bench or been injured.
And I don't know, that was part of it, because he looked, I mean, part of it is being tired, like Mateusz is saying, but he definitely looked weak, like weak as in like, not as strong, like he would get shouldered off the ball a couple of times and things like that. I think he was really good moving going forward, especially in the first half, obviously when he had the energy. I don't know if they'll be eventually onto his move of faking the cross with the left and cutting it to the right. They kind of like kept falling for it over and over again.
He only did it 3 times in like a 5-minute span in the first half. No big deal.
But I'm actually kind of was pleased with the balls he was delivering in the box and everything too. So, I mean, we are without Robo at least till September, and knowing Klopp, probably more like mid-September, I would guess, before he can kind of like show he's ready to go. I think for the time being, do you guys think, is there anything to worry about in that section? Like, would you be so worried where you would put Milner back there, or he's kind of like earned the spot with what he's done? Jordan, what do you do?
I'm happy Moreno's not here. I'm glad we have Samikas. So I feel like once you had Moreno for a while, you set the bar so low that it's easy to kind of match the
For
maximum or
Alberto.
the minimum requirements, I should say. And yeah, if we have Milner, I always thought Milner did well at left back. So if Samikas is not up to standard, then we can always put Milner there. I'm not too worried.
Good old Moreno. It'll be 50 years from now. There'll be a left back conversation, and some old guy will be like, "You guys remember Moreno when he was playing left back?" And he was so good going forward, man. Yeah, but defensively, the whole shift seemed like a brain fart at times. So let's go back to, and this is actually a good point. Scott, who's also one of our actually contributors that we feature a lot on our website. For the first time, we even joked as we were watching the game together and chatting on the Discord channel that it was, I think it was the 55th minute or something like that, and we were like, oh, only 30 minutes before we make substitutions. I think Bickler said it because that's something we talked about on the podcast before too, yeah. And kind of criticize in terms of that's probably one thing to criticize about Klopp is how reluctant he is to do the subs and stuff. And before it got ugly, this time he made the subs. So Jordan, you thought, Jota, or actually you guys both mentioned thinking, Diogo would stay out there. Who would you guys have taken out, like Mateusz, when you got those subs in?
When Jota came off, I was thinking potentially you take off Ox and then kind of slide Firmino back a little bit, and then you have both Keita and Milner kind of sweeping up behind behind Firmino there, and you kind of have that 4-2-1-3 sort of a situation where you have Keita and Milner backing up Bobby, who's playing that, I guess, a false nine in a sense. So I think if anyone was going to come off for Jota, I thought it might have been Ox. The Firmino thing makes sense, and I think going forward we're going to see a lot of that Firmino and Jota and kind of back and forth, and it kind of just depends on the week which one Klopp is feeling will get the start, and the other one will come in that that 55th to 65th minute range, unless it's not necessary.
So that's a tricky one, and I think it's probably, especially once Henderson and Thiago comes back, obviously there's going to be a lot more conversation on the midfield three. But for now, it's probably one of the biggest decisions that I would say most fans disagree on in terms of who should play. So if you're making that decision game by game, you said, Mateusz, when do you choose which one if it was up to you?
It's a good question. I feel like if it's a team that kind of likes to sit back a lot, I feel like that's when you put in Bobby. I feel like Bobby's better at breaking down defenders and playing those balls that breaks those over the top or through the defense. So teams that don't really sit back as much, I feel like Jota would be better suited against those teams. So a team like Burnley, I would say I'd see Bobby ahead of Jota. Or I might be saying this, and it might be the whole opposite way around of what I'm saying. Maybe Jota's better to break down a team that sits back. But in my opinion, I think that's kind of where it sits. And I guess it also comes to just fitness of that week and how Klopp sees them in training.
How about you, Jordan? First of all, who's your pick? And then after your pick, how do you kind of go about which one to pick that week?
I'm a fan of both of them, to be honest. I love Jota and Firmino. I definitely have been leaning towards Jota more just based on his form. It's really a tough decision for me. I kind of liked what Mateusz said about playing the one striker up top with the three behind him, and then you can give Firmino and Jota both a chance to play with Salah and Mane on the sides. As far as who do I think plays in a defensive setup, it's definitely hard to decide. I feel like I'd rather have a striker that actually has some height when there's a back line playing, that low block or whatever you want to say. So
what do you want, Divock? I'm just kidding.
Well, I don't want Origi. I guess I'm going to have to lean towards Firmino because I think he's a bit smaller than Jota. But actually, one of the things that I wanted us to sign this summer was if we got rid of Origi and made space, a striker that was tall enough to kind of make a difference when we have those back lines. So as far as finding someone for that kind of setup, I think neither. but I do like them both. I think I would play them based on whoever's playing better at the time, and that way it provides competition with the whole front four. Basically, if anyone is slipping up, if say Mane didn't score today, I'm not saying he didn't play well. I'm just saying, say he goes a few games without scoring, you have Firmino, Salah, and Mane, or sorry, yeah, Firmino, Salah, and Jota that are all playing that can, basically provide competition and make Mane have to work harder to get back into that starting lineup. And I think that's kind of a healthy environment that we need. We need all the front four competing for those three positions, even maybe one more player.
I think what was nice to see is when Bobby comes in, the spacing somehow gets a lot better. And I think when we have the lead and we have the ability to the counter, he kind of like takes advantage of that spacing a lot better. His movement is better and stuff like that. Whereas, with Diogo, it's more about like going at players. I mean, he had that run where I didn't even know how the hell he kept going. The one that guy can't the yellow card when he like slipped like from back. That was the only way to stop him. I mean, when he's direct like that, going at players, I thought that's when, he's the most effective. I know what you're saying, Jordan, but I almost feel like we will never have that. I mean, it's a good plan B to have that tall dude in the middle. I think it's like, something that a lot of fans want, but I just don't see it happening with the way we play. So let's touch on that, by the way, in terms of the things that we do when we play. The short corner kicks, can we please get rid of them? Because especially when they were working, it looked like we were kind of like dominating the box in those corner kicks when we played it, into the box to the point where, they had to really crowd it. So anytime the ball got headed out, that Salah goal was coming the entire game because that ball kept going back to the corner of that box over and over again in the first half. So not why when we use a guy like Trent, by the way, who, like Boz was saying, like, that's a good point. I thought he had like an excellent game today, which kind of like brings me to the next part of the conversation. Because throughout the game, I was like, man, he's been the best so far. Then it was like, well, he's playing pretty solid too. I thought there were some really solid performances throughout. So Mateusz, let me throw you under the bus first. If you had to pick, which you do have to pick, man of the match, who do you get?
Ox, probably.
Just for the hair, as Bickler would say. Yeah.
No, and I only want to slightly disagree with your idea of not doing short corners anymore because I would love to see Bickler destroy his TV at least once or twice more this year. As far as a man of the match, I think Trent's a good shout, but I think today Salah was really who stood out the most for me. Even though it was a very solid performance from a lot of players, I feel like there's probably two or three at least that could that you could consider have man of the match performances. And just the way that Salah was able to be in the right place at the right time, it seemed like most of the match, and be able to play most of those balls that properly that we want him to play. And then having that one moment towards the end, I think you commented on it, where the one time where he passed, where he probably should have shot. He could have easily had another one or two goals. So I think for me, it would have to be Mo.
I like, how things like that, obviously we follow this team very close and noticed a lot more where you see Mo trying to pass. And it was a beautiful assist to Bobby. I mean, he knew that pass was going to go there. Even the ball kind of like came to him kind of thing. And yeah, like Jamie says, he's like 5 seasons in a row scoring the opener. It is pretty amazing. I even put him. I was going to put him on the fantasy team, even though, I know by the 4th week, I'm going to forget to do the lineup and I'm going to fall off the wagon anyway. But I started this week just to see what happens. I had like Trent and stuff in there. But Jordan, who do you put as your player of the game, man of the match?
Well, my system is very much based on the fantasy league points. So I'm going to go with Mo just because, 2 assists, 1 goal. I feel like that definitely got him some points. No, but I honestly thought
the second
half. Too. If Jota had stayed on and maybe gotten another goal, I might have given it to him. I definitely thought that certain players played well. Fabinho when he came on, but he didn't play a full match, so obviously he's not man of the match material. Yeah, I like Salah.
Yeah, I agree. Like I say, as the game went on, he was just like torching him on that wing with Trent and like his speed. And that's what I thought, when Bobby came in, he is a lot better at using the space ahead of Mo or the space ahead of Mane, I feel like, when he's passing. So instead of like to feet, he kind of like takes advantage of that space and lets Mo kind of like go get it and stuff like that. Because both those guys have like ridiculous speeds to be able to kind of like torch defenses. I know I wouldn't want to play against those guys. So let me ask you guys this. I mean, obviously, when we look, I mean, it's like an ideal scenario. I wish we could play Norwich every week. But, like with the clean sheets, 3 points, away game, especially without, having Hendo, Thiago, and a healthy Van Dijk, not to mention a full 100% Fabinho and stuff like that. If I asked you guys, what did you learn from today's game? Because we were kind of doing this with the preseason, like what we learned from each game. Jordan, what did you learn from today's game?
Well,
good lesson, bad lesson, either way.
As one of the commenters pointed out, Klopp definitely made some better subs today, but I think that was maybe based on the fact that I didn't like his starting lineup, so I was happy with the players that came on. What did I learn? I learned that right back for Norwich is actually pretty decent. Max Aarons, he looked pretty good. Fabinho is just a wall when he comes on. I was really happy when he came on. I don't think Milner necessarily plays that holding midfield role the same. He doesn't play it bad, but he's just not tall enough and not imposing enough to be that wall that stands in front of when we retain the possession in the front line. Basically, how we're trying to keep them from getting it up past the halfway. Fabinho is that guy that kind of keeps it from getting there. So I was happy when he came on. I love when he comes on for us.
One thing with Milner, man, and I know he's, like you're saying, you look at Milner, like it's a guy you wouldn't want in FIFA. You know what I mean? Like all the ratings are nuts. Nothing is impressive. But I mean, as a role player, the dude does what he needs to, and he's kind of veteran enough to know what he needs to do. I know when we were doing the substitutions, part of me I thought, when Fabinho came in, Milner would go out, just because, obviously it's a natural position, like an even swap, and not to mention, like, Milner had the yellow, and I know, like, Megan in our group from American Scouser mentioned that, he's veteran enough to be able to play with a yellow, and he played with a yellow a long time. And how he tackles, so you almost like, it has to be hard for Milner to not tackle like that and like play with the yellow the entire game. Matush, what did you learn today?
Oh, man. I think initially in my head was part of what Jordan had mentioned about the substitutions, and I think it could be a good sign, hopefully moving forward, not one of those things where we kind of get teased with, and then, next week we end up not with no substitutions until the 82nd minute when we really needed one earlier. But I think otherwise, I'm learning to have faith again, seeing Keita out there, seeing the way that he was able to play. And like Jamie had just commented about not counting your chickens before they hatch. So I'm learning to be patient and having faith and hoping that this could be something that we've been waiting for from him for years now. So I think that's kind of where I'm leaning towards that.
So you learned to hope for a healthy Keita?
Yeah, pretty much. just to have more options. It's great knowing that, with Hendo and Thiago coming back and Fabinho being at 100%, you're going to have good options that you could use in that midfield. Especially with Harvey getting slotted back there. I mean, as long as you have those options and someone goes down, and the first thing that you think of when someone goes down is, oh shit, who are they going to put in this place? Like that's at that time where I think last year we went through that almost every week. And this year it was really great to see center backs on the field and in the bench as potential subs. So that was really comforting to see. And so just having that sort of the possibility of rotation, it's great to see.
I agree. I think, today, so when this team is healthy, that bench is going to have a lot of quality options. Even today, it had a lot of quality options with no Handel being there, no Thiago being there, and stuff like that. And was Divock on the bench? Speaking of quality
Yeah,
alternatives,
Yeah, he
he
was.
was. Yeah, okay. Well,
The
I mean,
mega
that's what I
quality.
mean. So as we move on, I mean, I think that was one thing. I mean, you guys know me like on the podcast. I'm very careful with Keita. I just don't want to get excited. Every time I get excited, something happens. But I think in terms of our midfield players here, probably one of the best ones. And when we talk about Bobby being like one of the best ones in counter pressing and kind of like starts everything up top, I feel the same thing with Keita when it comes to the midfield players. I mean, his counter pressing is amazing, and he created a lot even today with the balls he wins in midfield. So it will be interesting to see, and kind of like let me ask you guys that. Having seen today's performances, unfortunately, and I do say unfortunately because I really had high expectations going into the season with Ox, but I would think he kind of took a step back in that conversation. If Henderson and Thiago are back next week, which I would think so, especially for Thiago, and Fabinho, obviously, I would think would start with another week of like practice and stuff. So, Jordan, let me ask you first: who is your midfield three right now?
I think you basically said it. Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson. I heard Thiago's having a few health problems, fitness problems, so maybe I might choose somebody else over him. I'm open to giving Elliott a chance actually because I just like to see him get a start and get some more minutes. But it's Burnley, so I'm not really sure what to expect yet. Their last season they didn't do too well, but we'll see.
And that's another question I want to ask. Actually, that was a result I was not expecting today for them to lose at home. But Matish, who do you have for your midfield three in an ideal world, in a healthy world?
It's tough because you look at someone like Hendo and just his demeanor, his attitude, his the way he can control the team is something that is very, very important to have on the pitch. So it's hard to count him out when he's healthy. But if we're looking at something like a healthy and productive Keita, the way that he can be with Fabinho and Thiago, I think that would be my three. If anything, it would be Hendo, Thiago, and Fabinho. I'm totally okay with that. But if Keita is rearing to be the Keita that we want him to be, I think Keita, Thiago, and Fabinho would be a very, very solid midfield three.
I think one thing we get with Henderson that people kind of like overlook is how fast the ball moves when he's in midfield. There were times even when we switched wings today, I felt like the movement of the ball was really slow. One thing that he brings is being able to switch fields right away and stuff like that. We talk about, Van Dijk with those diagonal passes. I think he kind of provides that in midfield in terms of like quick switches, especially when we play against teams that are like, have the low block and like sitting back and stuff like that. So as parting thoughts, any shockers so far in terms of results in the Premier League? I don't even know if we can be shocked with Arsenal anymore. It's kind of like Arsenal being Tottenham, Tottenham being Arsenal kind of deal. But any Jordan out of scores today, anything that catches your eye?
Well,
Not fantasy wise.
when I woke up this morning and I saw that United score, I just wanted to go back to sleep. Damn Bruno Fernandes. Let's see. Crystal Palace kind of just expected them to lose because I don't have much faith in their manager, Vieira. There weren't too many shocks, really. I mean, the Villa, actually, a lot of people expected Villa to do well, and they lost 3-2, so that was definitely a bit of a surprise. I like Sarr, so I was happy to see him score for Watford.
Yeah, he was rumored for freaking months and months and months. As our transfer guy, I'm sure you've been reading about Sarr nonstop. Matush, any shockers for you? Anything that you catches your eye?
Pretty much the Watford Villa game was a shock to me. I know that they lost Grealish, but also bringing in a guy like Ings and bringing in Leon Bailey and having those options, I felt like they're better than that. And that's not the game that I watched, so I didn't really see. All I can look at is the score line and kind of judge off of that. Otherwise, like you mentioned before, Burnley conceding 2 within a couple minutes of each other. I think it was at home, right? Or it was
they were
73 and 70. Yeah, within 5 minutes they they conceded 2 and lost the game at home. So not that I'm surprised that Brighton won. I'm just surprised by the way that Brighton was able to take a win at Burnley there at Turf Moor.
Yeah, that probably is the game for me. I just didn't, because Burnley is kind of like tough to play at home. I mean, especially with their style. And that's one thing, man. It is so good to see the fans back. The game feels totally different. I know my dog agrees because now he can tell when there's a goal or something important happened. So he knows what is treat time and stuff like that. So we were all getting in the groove of how to watch Liverpool with fans. So that was like interesting. So before we part, and we will hopefully be doing this every week, and even like eventually, hopefully doing our podcast like that in our own studio. We're kind of borrowing our studio that we use with my brother normally for our podcast in Turkish. So if you want to brush up on your Turkish, you can always listen to that as well. So any parting thoughts for the week? Obviously, it's going to be a nice Saturday evening. But Mateusz, the newly engaged man, any parting thoughts?
Let's just try and have fun this year. Last year was very difficult on a lot of different accounts, whether it was personal or in sports. And I feel like it's nice to have, like you mentioned, having the fans back, feeling that atmosphere again. That moment, Jamie mentioned it in the comments when Trent looked at the crowd and kind of gave them a little gesture there. It's just moments like that where you kind of just sit back and appreciate just being able to have the privilege of just sitting down and watching a sport and, enjoying it and not taking anything else for granted. I think that's my thought after all of that.
Yeah, normalcy feels nice in a weird kind of way, doesn't it? Jordan.
It's nice to see fans back. I mean, that's the general consensus with everybody. I could hear them singing "No Salah," even though it was Norwich's game. What I'm most hoping for is Klopp will put his glasses back on because he looks kind of weird without them. It's just kind of, I don't know.
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely a nice Saturday evening awaits now after the score. I'm always a nervous wreck before games. You guys know me. I'm the ultimate pessimist. So no easy game for me. So it was kind of like, it was nice to kind of watch, semi-relaxed, especially after the second goal. Just did not look like we were going to kind of like lose that. So it was a lot of fun to watch these guys. And like I say, with the fans actually watching the game as opposed to, I don't know, even last year, even in the biggest games, it always felt like you're watching practice or something like that. So it was good to see. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Mateusz, a special thanks to Michelle for letting us borrow you for 30 minutes over here as you're headed over to Mexico, right?
Tomorrow, yes.
All right. So if you're in Mexico,
what a weekend. Proposal, Liverpool, big win in Mexico tomorrow. I honestly couldn't have asked for anything better in my life. So.
Nice. Congrats again on behalf of all of us and American Scouts and everything. And Jordan, thank you. Hopefully we'll be having you. And I know you're going to be a busy guy with all the transfer stuff in the next 2 weeks. So thank you all for listening and see you guys next week.